It is time to wrap up another reading time frame. I am trying to, in 2019, to get back into like the monthly one. Well, I am very late with my December wrap up. I apologize, but that is because I had an amazing reading month in December, and I have had some trouble with the files that I made for the wrap-up. I actually kind of lost 3 wrap-ups, and I'm not going to go through it again, but I will tell you in a bit what these 3 books are. So first off, a few stats. I read 15 total books in December out of 26 that I put on my TBR. So that is more than 50%. Yay! That's my goal, to get more than 50% of my TBR done. I read 5,157 pages out of the 10,298 pages, so pretty much 50%. Still good. I also DNF'd 1 book, which was the Best of Adam Sharp, and I DNF'd it because I was simply not feeling it at all. It wasn't a bad book, but it's like about this 50-something person finding his love again, and I was so tired of like the whole story, and it was all romance, and it just, no. I think it might be for some people, but it just was not for me. It's not the right time, not the right genre, so I had to DNF it. I purchased 4 books for my December TBR, and I got 3 books from like rental services like Scribed or Audible, or just something that I pay monthly, like a library. And out of these, I only read the 3 rentals and 1 of the purchases. So I bought 3 books because I wanted to read them in December, and I did not. I read 5 hardcover, 5 paperbacks, 3 audiobooks, and 4 ebooks. And this is quite unusual for me because I usually tend to read more hardcovers than paperbacks. I just like that the spine doesn't break when I'm putting the book flat on a surface. I like paperbacks for traveling and for being like on my way and having them in my bag, but I just like the feel of hardcovers a lot more. So these are the like rough stats of my December reading. The 3 books that I don't have the summary taped is The Best of Adam Sharp, which I DNF'd, then Caraval, which I loved, and I am hopefully reading the sequel really soon, and City of Brass, which I also really do like. It was a I mean, Caraval and City of Brass were both like my genre. It's like fantasy, and I'm very forgiving with that. I have to say I didn't love City of Brass as much as I thought I would, possibly because I'm not familiar with that like time and that culture, and a lot of the words that were in this like in this book, like the djinn and all these creatures, were kind of unfamiliar to me. I believe if I might have known the culture a little bit better and not had to look up what all these creatures are and what a djinn is, etc., I probably would have liked it a lot better. So it's just thought maybe I have to reread it when I have had more of this type of books. Yeah, and for all the other books that I read in December, I will have my vlog type summary now. Have fun! I finished The Giver by Louise Lowry. I don't know how to pronounce the name, sorry. And it was everything I was hoping for. I did watch the movie before, and I wasn't sure what to expect. I wasn't sure if this had a lot more than the movie, if the movie was really different, but it was just perfect. The way it was written, it was more insightful than the movie, but it had the same feeling, the same atmosphere, and it really felt like the same story. You know how sometimes in movies it doesn't feel like the same story? It just did. This is just a wonderful reflection of life in society, and I am just loving this book so much. If you haven't read it, you definitely should, because this is, in my opinion, this is a must read for everybody. So basically, we're following this guy who lives in this perfect world, in this like sameness where everything is structured and everything is in order and everybody is content, until he gets this assignment to be the new receiver of memories, and then he starts to understand a little bit more of what has been changed in this world and what dark secrets are being kept to achieve this sameness that makes everybody so content. And yeah, I don't know, it's just a really, really good book, and this prize received is for a good reason, and I just can recommend this so much. I just finished The Queen's Wing, and I have to say I was a little bit surprised, confused, to say the least. So the way the synopsis was written, I expected some fantasy, I expected some like political intrigue, assassination attempts. I expected a strong female character who wants like nothing but fly. I thought this flying thing was maybe like a fantastical magical thing, was advertised as a magical world, etc. So and yeah, I was expecting a little romance as well. So this was what I was in for, and like that's my jam. I like the like political intrigue, court, and like she's going to live with this guy and marry this guy that she doesn't know for like political reasons, and she's trying to find her place, etc. So it sounded really strong, like something that I would like. Now what I got was something completely differently, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't enjoy this, but I was so set up for something else that I had trouble adjusting in my mind to that this is not what I was getting. So what this book really is more of a sci-fi story. It is a very strong romance love triangle, which, by the way, how this stops being a triangle is the like, oh my gosh, I hated that. I hated how this was stopped in a way that it broke my heart. Then we have aliens. I did not expect aliens. I do enjoy the occasional nice alien story, but not always, and I need to be in the mood for it. We had like mechanical adjustments to people and changing them, etc. We did have a little intrigue and court, like assassination attempts, but I was really missing like the real intrigue and scheming, and all that's fun about it was just missing. I felt like the world, the idea was really good, but it wasn't executed in a way that I could just be in this world, and I feel like it just could have taken as like one step further. Also, the characters felt kind of flat, so I feel like they were kind of one-dimensional. They could have been like there was no evolution really. There was no like growth, just a little, and it just wasn't enough. So this Roman triangle was in the front, and then like there were some action scenes. I just wasn't invested as much as I could have. I think this can be a really strong story, and I can see a lot of people loving it. I just feel that the people who wrote the synopsis did a really, really bad job selling it to the wrong people. And I'm hoping that the people who are totally there for like this alien invasion, different kinds of worlds setting is something that they're into. People who love a love triangle, go for it. Go for this book, give it a try, and maybe you're gonna love it. Just go in with like the right sense of what this book is gonna deliver. I read Alanna by Tamora Pierce because I really wanted to get into her Total series. This is a really, really short book and follows this girl and her, well, it doesn't follow her twin brother, but the premise is that the twin brother wants to learn sorcery and she wants to become a knight, but they're tasked to be like the different one. And so she comes up with the idea to swap places, and yeah, she then pretends to be a boy, and we're following in her into early womanhood. This was a fluffy, nice little cute read. It didn't like fully, I wasn't able to fully submerge in it, and there were like a few, I wouldn't say plot holes, but it feels like in some parts it was like drawn out, and in others it was rushed, and a few things were talked about but not then taken any further. So for example, like getting your period for the first time is a big deal in the beginning, but then probably after dealing with it for the first time, it's not being an issue anymore, kind of thing. So I do understand that this is like the first in the series, and that this is only like, this doesn't feel like a first in the series. This actually honestly more feels like a prequel, to be honest. So let's see how like the next ones are. I have a feeling that this series will grow on me pretty quickly, but this first one was only like, okay. So I finished Der Spiegelwächter. I'm not really happy with it. I really was hoping to get like a German book in there for like a change, and maybe like a quick and fun read. And the premise sounded really good. It was like this magical world, 5 mirrors, where you can like get from the real world to the magical world, and something like where like the these magical creatures, like this world is full on magical with like a lot of creatures and stuff, and people can get these powers, and these powers are in the shadows. So if your shadow is separated from you, somebody can like steal your power that way. Yeah, there were like a few things in there that sounded really different and really fun, and I was really looking forward to this just fun, easy story. But sadly, I just could not cope with the writing style. The writing style just was too simple, too like, I don't know, it just felt so forced that I was constantly aware of reading, and just not in a good way. I don't know, it just, I started catching myself that I swapped into speed reading, which is, speed reading is fun for me if I just want to get like a glimpse of the plot, a quick overview, and give a book a chance, and get to like more interesting parts that I really want to read and consume and be in this world and stuff. But if I really want to enjoy myself, I need to read more slowly. I wish I could do that more quicker, like all the time, so I can read a lot more books than I do. But if I turn to speed reading during a book, that's never really a good sign, unless it's intentional, that I'm like skipping maybe romance scenes or sex scenes that I'm just not into. But here I started skipping like the big parts of the adventure, and it annoyed me because I think this could have been a good one. This had so much potential. I was just annoyed with quite a few things, but the writing style was just the main thing that killed it for me. I might have liked the whole thing, wouldn't it have been for the style. So sadly, it's only a 2 out of 5 stars for me, because the writing style really killed it so much for me. Sorry. I finished Rule by Ellen Goodlad, and I loved this book. I loved it so much. I didn't expect it to love it that much, to be honest. It is a fairly straightforward fantasy book. We have 3 girls that carry a dark secret. They're being asked, well, partly kind of just taken to court, and they think it's because of their dark secret that they're going to be executed or something. But no, they're not. They're actually being told that they are the king's bastards, and they are supposed to be the new heir since his son died. So one of them is going to become the new heir, but they're going to learn all the ropes of the court, etc., before he chooses one. The 3 girls couldn't be more different. We have very much a kind of representation of diversity in a way, because these girls are so different from their background, and it's kind of fun to see how they're kind of getting into each other's world in a way. I at first expected this to be like a bloody drama where they're going to pretty much trying to kill each other, but no, they're starting to work together and they're starting to form a sisterhood, and they're just so different, and they are, oh my gosh, I mean, I was like, half of the time I was like, okay, I get it, you don't trust them, I get it, you have a really dark secret, but then again, these secrets were really dark, so I kind of understand why they wanted to keep them secret. Overall, I enjoyed it. I was able to get into it quickly. I was able to understand where I'm at quickly. The magic system is different and awesome. It does need a trigger warning for self-mutilation, because the magic system pretty much relies on cutting themselves and bleeding. But other than that, I do feel like it's awesome. There are a few like question marks that I still have, but since this is a series, these could be answered in the second book, and this could be the rise or the fall of the series. I loved the ending. So, well, I love the ending in a way that I'm like, I want to know what's gonna happen now kind of way, but I do like this level of like not straightforward and having a few like twists and turns and stuff. So I really did enjoy it. I can recommend it to anybody who likes regal fantasies and court politics and stuff. That's my jam, so I loved it. And if that's your jam, you will most likely love it too. If that's not your jam, I don't know if that's the book for you, but I loved it. Oh my gosh, when you just film your whole review, wrap up, whatever, and you just realize that you didn't actually film. So I just finished Unwritten by Tara Gilboy, which is a middle grade fantasy. We're following this girl who lives in the real world, but she has like these nightmares, and she's being told by her mom that she actually originates from a story, and that her mom took her out of the story into the real world because this evil queen Cassandra has been trying to kill her, and these like glimmers images are her remembering what the story would have been like. And this girl is naturally curious. She wants to know more about the story. She wants to know more about what has been written about her, what's like her predetermined way of like who she is. And when she hears that this author of the story comes like to her place, she wants to meet her, and things unravel from there. So I really did enjoy this story a lot. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I believe that this story is really great for getting out of this like black and white thinking. It's about expanding our horizon, about what makes people good and what makes people bad, and that bad isn't bad and good isn't good, but that bad people can do good things and good people can do bad things. And what I really found important is that this really could teach kids that even it doesn't matter about your circumstances, it doesn't matter about where you come from or what has been predetermined for you. You are still, in the end, it is up to you to make good decisions, to be a good person. And even if people tell you from your past or from the situation that you have been given that you are a bad person or that you should be a bad person, it is still up to you and you can still break out of it. As I said, overall, I really did enjoy it. I think this only could have been a little bit better if we would have gotten a little bit more about Cassandra, this like queen that they were hiding from in the real world. And I would have, if the author would have made me fall in love with the evil queen in the end, because I understand her motivation and I understand why she did what she did. This would have been perfect for me. We're getting close to that like feeling in the end, but we're not getting there. So this is the only thing that would have made it perfect. I would totally recommend this for middle graders. It's a good learning experience. It's good to broaden their horizon. It's a cute little fantasy. I'm not exactly sure if this really would be for the older readers who like reading middle grade from every now and then. I'm not 100% sure if this is something that I would necessarily recommend to them. For middle graders, definitely yes. I really did enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to what I'm going to be finishing next. So I finished Beneath the Sugar Sky by Seanan McGuire, and oh my gosh, I just love this world so much. These stories are so much fun, and I love how these stories in this world are so different, and still they have like the same atmosphere, even though like in the second book we were in a really, really dark and twisted place, and now we're like in this really crazy, colorful, candy-ish place. So, and it's still somehow the same feel to it. And I love how we're getting deeper and deeper into this world, getting to know different worlds. If you haven't read any of the books yet, this series is about this pretty much it's about this place, Miss Eleanor's home for wayward children, and kids go there who have gone through a door into a different world, which can be a logical world or a nonsense world. So pretty much like the Narnia thing or the Alice in Wonderland thing. And they come back into the real world, and they're trying to cope with being back and trying to find their way back into this like fantastical world, because they really want to be in this other world. And these kind of kids, they come to the school because their parents are not able to help them anymore. And in the first book we have this like murder mystery type that plays in the school. In the second book we're following two kids into their world. We're hearing like the story before it all happened, and it's like this dark and twisted place. And now we're following, like we're on a quest with a couple of students, and we are aiming to go to this nonsense world with like where everything is pretty much candy. And I love that this series is so fantastical, so different, so it's so creative, and I just love this world and I cannot wait for more. I don't want this series to end. I want to explore more and more worlds, and I love this series. Also, these books are really small, so they're a quick read in between, and if you haven't read them, you really should, because they're just fun, and as I said, they're like a quick read in between, or they're really good to start a readathon. So, because that's what I did pretty much. Yeah. All right. I finished The Cheerleaders by Cara Thomas, or Thomas. I really did enjoy it a lot. This was pretty much recommended to me by taking part in a readathon, and this was one of the hostess picks. I did not enjoy it as much as the host did, but I think this is not due to any fault of the book, just due to my taste. I like a little bit more twists and turns, especially in a thriller or a thrillery story. And this book was much more character development driven. Trigger warning about statutory rape and victim shaming, and I think that the way this victim of the statutory rape in this book has been blaming herself and has been looking for the fault in herself, and didn't even doubt it at all for most of the book, is kind of beautifully done, because I think it's quite realistic. They think that way, but we then have several influences from the outside telling her that she's a victim. And I think I understand some people not liking this book because it doesn't take it far enough for her to understand that she's a victim, because she doesn't voice it out loud that much. But I think the hints that she's giving is far more realistic, and it's sinking in for the reader. I don't think that necessarily a character has to learn something by the end or fully be there, as long as we as a reader get the message. So the character can still be in denial, the character can still have a long ways to go to really be like, yes, I'm a victim and it's not my fault. If we as a reader have been taught the right thing in a way, because it won't have any consequences for a fictional reader, but it's us, the readers, who should be learning something. So I think from that perspective, it was really, really good and well done, and could be quite important for young girls of that age. But for my personal enjoyment, I'm much more plot driven. It was just not enough plot driven stuff. The twists weren't gripping enough, weren't WTF enough, and I need that, especially in a thriller. I saw everything coming from like a mile ago, and not enough surprises. That's all. I also DNF'd The Best of Adam Sharp today. I'm actually currently giving that away in my 12 Days of Christmas. I do think that there's some people out there who will love it. I didn't DNF it because it's a bad book. I usually just DNF bad books from my point of view, but in this case it's simply I was sent this in the chocolate and book box in the beginning of the year. I tried it and it's just not for me. If you have been watching my channel for a little bit, you know that I do not care for romance at all. It's not that I'm an insensitive person, I just find romance stories so boring. And this is exactly what happened here. I was bored out of my mind. The story is basically about this old guy. I think he's supposed to be like in his 50s. And he met this actress when he was like around 25. They had a fling, and she suddenly contacts him again like 20 years later. And it's like this midlife crisis. What have I missed? Because he's in a nice enough place. He has a house, he has a wife, and he's content. And now he's challenging if he's actually content. I don't know. And we're in the very beginning of the book. We have a lot of like stories from the past. We're diving into how they got to know each other, etc. pretty quickly. And I'm just so annoyed by the characters. I'm annoyed by how this woman behaves. I'm bored. And I feel like, or I felt like, this is going to be basically just falling in love and having sex. And that's not what I'm here for. It's just not. And then I read a few reviews and they kind of confirmed my suspicion. I do understand people loving this who, I don't even think that you need to relate to Adam, but who like a romance and missed chances stories. I think it could be a book for this type of person or this type of reader. It just is not for me, and thus I DNF'd. I finished Who Moved My Cheese and I'm about to fall asleep, so very quick read right before going to bed. This is a nonfiction. I usually don't read nonfiction. I should be reading more nonfiction, but I just don't. Who Moved My Cheese is a very, very short book. It only has like 100 pages and it is about adapting to change. I really did like the ideas in this book, and I would recommend this to anybody who just wants to self-reflect a little bit about adapting to change and maybe get a few ideas about how to think about the world. And I do believe this can benefit a lot of people who might be stuck in a way. It didn't give me any new ideas, but the ideas are solid, and the way it's told and the way it's presented is kind of nice, because this nonfiction book is like just a story, and it's put into a story, and it's very easy to like consume. So total recommendation. Not completely mind-blowingly new for me, but it might be for others, so total recommendation. Go read it. It's a very quick one, and I'm pretty sure most will benefit from this, so go read it. Next, I finished Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman, and I love this book. I love this world. I love everything about the arc of the scythe. It's just kind of unique, at least in my book. Tell me if you have read anything at least coming like close to the idea. We're living in a futuristic world where technology and science has given us no more natural deaths. So in this society, they have created a profession, the so-called scythe, that are tasked to pretty much kill people to keep the population growth at a, not at a minimum, but like at a steady level that they can sustain. The first book was all about how two people were chosen as apprentices for becoming a scythe, and their struggles, their battle towards scythehood. And now the second book is following them after right after what happened in the first book, right after this apprentice time. And boy, oh boy, did I not! I didn't expect that. Like, so many surprises that I did not see coming. It's not like there were like these huge twists, so that I would vote this book into like the most surprising twists. But I didn't see coming what was happening. It was all fresh. I love the world. I love the idea of this futuristic world, etc. I can't talk too much about the content to not spoil you, but if you haven't picked up the Arc of the Scythe yet, it is amazing and you should totally do it. Do whatever a trial, like a trial read on a Kindle, or listen to a few minutes, like a trial listen or whatever, and then decide. But I'm gonna tell you, you want to know this story. It's amazing. Definitely one of my favorites of the year. Next, I finished In Another Time by Caroline Leach, and I love this cover, by the way. We're following a 17-year-old Macy who is living in the 1940s, and she is joining the Women's Timber Corps in Scotland, where the women take over being lumberjills while the men have gone to war. This is a historic romance, and if you like this type of thing, this book is wonderful. It's beautifully written. It has all the drama, all the romance, all the poetry that you could wish for. It has female friendship. It has strong women. It has eyes rolling things from the past. It does have a relationship that feels a little bit forced to me, in a way that I feel like the author was forced to bring some more, just some more different relationships to it. It just didn't feel as natural as everything else that she wrote, and I was annoyed about a villainy type, some sort. She wasn't really a villain, but she was a character that you were supposed to be annoyed by, but this character had no depth at all. I want like a bad guy to be more than just an annoying person for the sake of being annoying. Overall, this was a pretty good book. It's just not up my alley. I just kept rolling my eyes at all the romancy parts. I kept rolling my eyes at all the drama parts. All the parts that people probably love who love this type of genre, I kept rolling my eyes at. I still read it in one sitting because it's so beautifully written. So if you like that type of book, pick it up. It's most likely wonderfully for you. Next, I finished Select by Marit Weisenberg. This was kind of sold to me as a science fiction fantasy where this group of people is living in our society that are evolved or something. What is clear is in the beginning that they are better in a way. So we don't know what they really are. And to be honest, after reading it, I still don't know what they are. They seem to be genetically evolved like another species or evolved human beings or something. Most importantly, they have like heightened senses and they have some abilities like telekinesis, and we're following this girl who is a teenager and she is living with this species, and they have to hide from like the human beings because they've been discovered before and that has like almost gotten them extinct or something. So now they're kind of hiding, and whenever they're being like caught, they kind of move. So she does something that kind of arouses suspicion, and her father is sending her to a public high school as a punishment. But there she meets this boy, and like he's becoming, you could say he's becoming her experiment or something with her powers or whatever. And she totally feels like this. Well, that's what it was sold like to me. She was supposed to like this being her like haven away from her like mean father or whatever. I had really high hopes for this. It sounded really, really interesting. I liked this whole powers idea, evolved human beings being better. They sounded elitist. But they were only annoyingly elitist. Like it was written from the point of view of this girl, and she was very confusing, and she was all the time like, "Oh, I have to dumb it down. So like I have to dumb down my essay, etc." And I was like, "Oh, this is annoying. This is really annoying." It also left me completely confused about what they were. My main issue was pretty much lack of plot overall. Like there was no real plot, and honestly, two people insta loving each other, not a plot. Nope. I did kind of like the writing style, to be honest, so that kind of kept me going the whole time. And I will read the sequel because I do have an arc for it, and it ended in a way that's like, I'm hoping there might be some plot-ish things in the next one. My main issue really is it was boring as hell. I just rolled my eyes over and over about this insta-love swooning and this overall relationship, and this utterly confusing, what is this? Like this evolved type of people who are trying to hide and then driving it around in Lamborghinis and kids in BMWs, coming in with a group of lawyers as soon as something happens. And oh my gosh, I mean, I love snobbish, elitist people stories, but this was way too much. Like even for me liking this, it was too much. People who don't even kind of like it, no, stay away from this. You will, no, this is just, no, they're like, no. Oh, by the way, and those people who are trying to hide and blend in, also they're kind of daredevilish and like always like thrill seeking, doing doing thrill seeking stuff, which totally would have gotten them exposed before. So it just doesn't make sense most of the time. So yeah, for the first bit I was hoping this would still be good because I liked the writing and I was in it. At least it was a rather quick read. So yeah, let's see how the sequel does. Next, I finished Bride We Burn by Kirsten White. Oh my gosh, I love this series so much. So if you haven't heard about this series yet, where have you been? This is about, like, it's a historical retelling of sorts, about Vlad Tepes, meaning Dracula, if he would have been a girl. We're following over the course of the whole series, we're following Lara, who is Vlad Dracul, her brother Radu, Mehmet, who is for some reason pronounced Mahmed in the audiobook, but the way the name is written from the Turkish people that I know, I totally pronounce him Mehmet, who is like the, by the first book, the Ottoman Sultan. And we're following these three characters and we're pretty much following their whole life. You can pretty much say that. We're starting out when when Lara and Radu are kids, and then like into adulthood and later on. I love these characters. I love these relationships. I love Radu's family that he has built and his like type of relationship. It seems like this is diversity representation in a historic setting that makes sense to me. It doesn't feel like it's a forced diversity in there for the sake of diversity, because that's what you do now. I feel like some authors force diversity in their books because that's what you have to do now. It doesn't feel like that here. It just feels like it makes sense how it works. And I just love how they all, like Radu and Mehmet and Lara's relationship between them all. And this is just the finale. I have to say I might have loved the second book most out of all the three. I just loved everything that was happening in Constantinople, and I didn't have that like oof in this one, but I still totally loved the finale, and in the end I was just crying. I don't know why really, because it wasn't that sad. Maybe I was crying because it was over. Life was over, the book was over. I don't really know, but I was crying in the end, and I don't cry. I'm not a crier, like, at least not when I'm reading. So that's atypical for me, and this book did it for me. So if you haven't picked up this series yet, this is a total recommendation. This is so good. Next, I finished the Confectioners Guild. Oh my gosh, I had so high hopes for this book. We're following Ren, who is surprised by being told that she has magical baking capabilities. So her products have magic, which is totally cool and a really good premise, like setting already. Now she gets into the guild where her magic is supposed to be like more trained, and there the guild master is being killed by her cupcake. So she's being accused of murder right away, and now we're following Ren and how she's trying to solve the murder. Kind of. So I had so much high hopes for this. I really wanted this to be good, but no. So first off, this romance is creepy and doesn't make sense, and at times I was yelling and screaming. I mean, she would tell herself, oh, there's no time for like stupid falling in love now. You don't know who's the love interest in this, really, like who's she falling for, and the people who are then falling for her, it's creepy. She's supposed to be like a teenager. I don't remember, 16 or 17. And there's this like police officer who is tasked to find her, like he believes in her innocence, and he's trying to find the murderer, like the real one. He's tasked to investigate the whole thing. You should not be falling in love. You police, like constable, officer or whatever, you should not. No, no, no. This is a teenage girl who's being accused of murder that you're trying to solve. Second, which police officer is asking a teenager to help them solve the murder? What? No, why? I mean, if the teenager who's like, oh my god, I'm going to have to pay and I'm going to be executed because I murdered the guildmaster, that she's trying to investigate for herself. Yes, but being asked to, and then all this like hiding and like they're meeting in secret to exchange clues or whatever. Why? No. All the while, it seems like our main character, Ren, she is very slow to catch on the evidence that she's picking up. And she's very slow to thinking about well, how could I go about this? Even worse, that she is kind of daft. The police officer doesn't even get the ideas that she has. Like, for example, there's like a very, very normal lead that a police officer would trace the way of the cupcake. Yes, the murderous killing cupcake, trace the way. Like, how did it get there? It takes like forever for Ren to actually ask that question. The police officer never did. Like, where's his police officer training? Whoa. I don't know. So, creepy romance, daft people, quite one-dimensional or two-dimensional at that. It just... And then there was like just too much that just did not make sense, where I was yelling like, why? No, that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that now? At one point, it's like the murderer had sent an invitation to the murdered person. So why? Let's go to that meeting instead and we will find the murderer. So if the murderer murdered that person, why would they still go to the meeting they invited the murdered person to, who has been killed? What? But for the police officer and Ren, that's highly logical. So, I honestly don't understand why there's so many people loving this. I mean, the idea is so good. The writing style, totally nice. I was rooting for this book. But this is so highly illogical, and the romance is creepy. And I mean, I only tolerate romances, like most of the time. But I understand that a lot of books need romance. This, no. No. Tell me, have you read it? What do you think? Am I that far off? Why are there so many like good reviews for this book? I don't know.